The longer Dragon Ball goes on, the more people throw around a specific phrase, unearned power-up. Whether it be a transformation, a new technique, or even just a character getting stronger in a disagreeable way, you'll always hear about unearned power-ups. So let's go over every power-up that's supposedly unearned in the series and see if it actually is. Original Dragon Ball is where we'll start, but honestly, there aren't many cases of a character powering up in a way that isn't training related. I think the first one you could look at is Goku fighting against Giren. No, not Jiren, I mean Giran, Goku's opponent in the 21st Tenkaichi Budoukai. Giran uses his merry-go-round gum technique to entirely immobilize Goku, and seemingly he can't escape. That is, until his tail conveniently grows back, and even more convenient, this lets Goku escape the gum, and with a quick display of power, Giran resigns. It's obvious why people think this is an unearned power-up, but what if I told you it's just not a power-up? Only the dub has Goku say he feels so much stronger with his tail. The sub, and especially the manga, imply that his tail only gave him extra time to break out of the gum since it took a bit of effort. So I'd say this isn't a case of an unearned power-up, more so just a classic dubism. You may think the next unearned power-up is against Tao Pai Pai, but I think the 3 days of training with Master Karin and the additional explanation later on of it being a Zenkai boost are more than enough for it to make sense and feel earned. Don't worry though, we'll talk about Zenkais, specifically without training, more later on. For now, the more important Master Karin power-up to talk about is 2 arcs later when Goku drinks the Ultra Divine Water. This is actually the very first potential unlock in the series, and it's a power-up that's a complicated one to cover due to how the story of Dragon Ball changed with the Z, but the easy answer is it was earned in the anime for sure, as Goku needed to go on a journey and even face a fake version of Master Roshi just to drink it. In the manga though, the answer will be based on how you feel about the payoff. You see, for the longest time, Goku's Ozaru form was a mystery and a dangerous one at that, but after drinking the Ultra Divine Water, the Great Ape form changed into a representation of Goku's own hidden potential. This payoff is quickly abandoned, however, especially after Goku being an alien and the Saiyans themselves are introduced, so I think it's fair to think of this one as unearned, but I can personally see it both ways. After this, we could skip ahead quite a bit till we reach Dragon Ball Z and that planet everyone wants to invade, Namek. This portion of the series is where everyone who was on Namek just kept getting juiced up, and honestly, it doesn't surprise me that people feel like a lot of this stuff is unearned. Let's start with the potential unlocks. Gohan, Krillin, and less importantly, Dende get their hidden power unlocked, and of course, it's described as power they've always had, but it still doesn't feel that great that this is the way Krillin and Gohan catch up, especially when they're still so far behind. But that might actually be a good thing, showing that potential unlocks have a limited ability to make a character catch up without anything additional. This doesn't necessarily stay true later on though. I can quickly go over Piccolo here as well. I think merging with Nail is a pretty powerful moment, showing both Piccolo's growth and Nail's resolve to do what he must for his people and planet Namek. So I think this power-up is narratively earned, and I think most people agree with that. The bigger issue is actually Piccolo's power before the merge. Depending on the source, Piccolo got 5 to 10 times stronger from merging with Nail. This skyrocketed his power level to over 1 million as he was able to handle second form Frieza, but that would mean in the 5 days he trained with King Kai, he went from a power level of 3,500 to a power level between 100 and 200,000. I don't care if he technically trained for it, that's bullshit. The other famous unearned power-ups in this arc are ones I've already mentioned, Zenkai boosts. When a Saiyan survives a battle from the brink of death, they get stronger. This happens for Goku, Gohan, and especially Vegeta. The point of these is to show that, in isolation, they actually are pretty ineffective. While Vegeta is able to deal with Frieza's initial underlings with Zenkai boosts, all it took was the Ginyu Force to show up, and if it hadn't been for Goku, he would have died before growing stronger than them. Even earlier than the Ginyus, Zarbon would have killed Vegeta if they didn't need him alive. Only furthering my point. Gohan's Zenkai boosts are equally ineffective, as are his Rage boosts at this point, so it only leaves us with Goku, who specifically trained while inadvertently getting Zenkais from it. This combination of training and Zenkai boosts earned him the power to take on the Ginyu Force in the same way I explained earlier with the Tao Pai Pai rematch. He did later get a very important and massive Zenkai boost that is basically one of the 2 reasons Frieza is defeated, so if you think that one is unearned, I can't really blame you because it is super convenient after all. Though, I will say for Zenkais on the whole, for an arc that's dedicated to accepting and learning about heritage, getting power-ups through his genetics is thematically consistent at least. Which takes us to the dumb argument people have made in more recent years, though usually they're not actually Dragon Ball fans. Super Saiyan. It's not an unearned power-up. Training isn't the same as earning. More often than not, something being thematically or narratively earned is even more important and more satisfying than if it's acquired through training. This isn't the only thematically earned power-up either. That doesn't mean training can't be used as a good way to show that a power-up is earned though. The Cell Saga as a whole is a lot of power-ups earned through training actually, like the Super Saiyan grades. Other power-ups are earned thematically, like Piccolo merging with Kami and Gohan getting Super Saiyan 2. Which leads us nicely to the Buu Saga, where the beginning is all power-ups earned through 7 years of training. Majin Vegeta is a potential unlock, but it's a very character-driven one rather than a random power boost to help him just catch up, and the point is, it's unearned by his own admission. So does it even matter if being unearned is actually the point? As much as I don't like Super Saiyan 3 narratively, it is explained well enough, and Goku continuing to evolve Super Saiyan makes sense when you consider the fact that that was his main training goal in the Cell Saga. I think the main unearned power-up in the entire arc is Gohan's ultimate form, and personally, I'm a bit mixed on it. While I understand that Gohan is getting his own potential unlocked, it does suck to have him built up to be the next protagonist only to have him slack off enough that he needs this boost. That being said, he did train for the Tenkaichi Budoukai and even trained with the Z-Sword as well. Then, considering how Goku struggled to lift the Z-Sword, base Gohan might actually be stronger than base Goku at this point, so maybe you could consider the potential unlock a reward for his hard training. This is just another case where I can see it both ways. Then we get into modern Dragon Ball with Dragon Ball Super. Well, technically Dragon Ball Z, since both Battle of Gods and Resurrection F were actually Dragon Ball Z movies first, and there are actually two power-ups to talk about in Battle of Gods. The first might be surprising, but it's Vegeta's Rage boost against Beerus. You see, Rage boosts before modern Dragon Ball were entirely left to Gohan, with other characters only getting a boost from their rage via a new transformation like Super Saiyan. This unprecedented way to get a power-up for a character that isn't Gohan actually leads me to think it's fairly unearned, but I'm sure that's a contentious opinion. Then we of course have Super Saiyan God. To me, the issue of foreshadowing this form is rectified by having Battle of Gods be an arc rather than just a movie, but even in the context of the movie, it's foreshadowed fairly well. You could think it's unearned due to it being acquired via a ritual, but the movie at least addresses this as Goku's main complaint with the form. Honestly though, Goku is the only reason the ritual can happen in the first place. He's earned this power by being the person who made it possible for 5 other righteous Saiyans to even exist. Remember, characters are more than the arc that's currently happening. Their history matters for stuff like this, and for me, that makes this power-up work extremely well. Super Saiyan Blue is of course earned through training, and even if you dislike the fact that Golden Frieza only required 4 months of training, does that make it unearned? This is why just training for something doesn't make it clear if it's earned or unearned. We don't have a line for how much training is good enough, and honestly, you could call it unearned, and I wouldn't blame you at all. Which leads us to Super Saiyan Rage, the form Trunks acquires in the Dragon Ball Super anime. It has one of the coolest reasons to transform ever in the series. Trunks is basically being told it's his fault everything bad has happened, and he refuses to accept that, but that's about all we get. There's no foreshadowing, no explanation, and we're meant to forget it the minute the arc ends. I think you can headcanon a way for it to be earned, but it's never really acknowledged in the narrative, so I don't think we should either. This should be obvious, but I think it's unearned. Then we get to the contentious power-ups that happen before the Tournament of Power. There are quite a few, but some are just misunderstood, like the fact that Krillin isn't as strong as Blue Goku. Goku was testing how Krillin would handle such a large gap in power, which is exactly what Gohan and Android 18 say. Goku's clearly holding back as not to kill Krillin, and a god form is the best way to do that since they can't sense how strong he is, not to mention the fact that Krillin was losing regardless. Then we have Android 17 actually being Super Saiyan Blue Goku level, and yeah, that's just unearned. I don't have much to say here. Finally, Gohan also rivals Super Saiyan Blue Goku, but that isn't from less than a day of training with Piccolo like most people think. After Resurrection F, Gohan asks to be trained by Piccolo again, and we even see them training before the Universe 6 tournament. If you for some reason don't believe this, compare Gohan in Resurrection F to Gohan in the Zen exhibition. Even before he trained with Piccolo for a final time, Gohan is clearly in way better shape than when he faced Frieza. Obviously, the narrative could do a better job of reminding you that Gohan has been doing some training, but that that doesn't mean it didn't happen. So in a world where Frieza gets to God level from Namek level in 4 months, I think Gohan training for 2 years to go from Buu Saga level to God level is completely fine, relative to the more egregious examples at least. People then complain about the Universe 6 Saiyans, specifically Caulifla, because they don't like the way she unlocks Super Saiyan. While I agree the way it was explained is pretty lame, I do understand the idea that once something is discovered once, it's much easier to teach others how to replicate it. We skipped over this, but my basic view on Caulifla is that if you don't think Super Saiyan Goten and Trunks are unearned, then you shouldn't think this is either, and the same is true in reverse. Then in the tournament itself, plenty of power-ups happen. Ultra Instinct was of course something Goku had been training towards with Whis since Resurrection F, so I think everyone understands why that works. I think the one that people point to as the most unearned is actually Blue Evolution. While Goku trained to use Kaioken with Super Saiyan Blue, Vegeta unlocked this form during the tournament itself. It entirely comes from Vegeta wanting to fulfill his promise to Kaba, but it's really hollow. There is a narrative behind it, especially with his whole speech about Saiyans breaking their limits towards the end of the tournament, but I think it would have been better if he got it during his fight with God of Destruction Toppo, since he would be rewarded for rejecting Toppo's philosophy. Either way, I don't think I can call it unearned entirely. There is a theme behind it, but I can say it's pretty lame though. Then I don't think there's actually anything to cover in the Broly movie. If you're really concerned about how Broly is so powerful, he trained for 40 years, has insane potential, got stronger during the fight, and had transformations on top of it all. Usually we only get one of those things to explain how someone's so strong, so having all of them makes it earned enough for me. To briefly touch on the Dragon Ball Super manga, I think just about everything is earned in the Moro arc. Then in the Granola arc, these two guys wish to be the strongest in the universe. That's clearly unearned, and I don't even think that's a hot take. Finally, we have Dragon Ball Super Superhero. The big two cases of unearned power are Piccolo and Gohan. I have a whole video dedicated to how we got to Orange Piccolo, but I will briefly say it's his dragon. Kami and Piccolo are one again, so Shenron was originally the dragon he made. This is power that comes from himself at the end of the day, and it even ties into the journey of Namekian warriors during times of great suffering that we learned about in Dragon Ball Super. Narratively, this is very different than the characters of the Granola arc who selfishly lusted for power, especially when you remember Piccolo only wanted his own potential unlocked, not to be the strongest person in the universe. Which leaves us with Beast Gohan, and I'm extremely torn on this. In the Dragon Ball Super anime, Gohan tells Goku he's going to make an ultimate form that no one has ever seen before, which manifests itself as Beast Gohan. That's cool and would have been great had it been earned through some other means. Obviously, Gohan has been doing some amount of training since he taught himself the Makanko Seppo, but he didn't unlock Beast until we got a 1-to-1 recreation of his Super Saiyan 2 transformation. It just feels hollow, like Super Saiyan Rage Trunks did, and then when you remember Gohan was just stapled onto what was supposed to be a Piccolo movie, I'll be brave and call the form unearned. Maybe the manga version will fix it up a bit. But that's all I got. Remember to subscribe if you haven't yet, and thank you so very much for watching.